So first, I'd like to take just a few minutes to highlight our accomplishments from last year. Despite a year full of unique challenges, another year of unique challenges, the SLELO staff, our partners, our volunteers, together we're able to accomplish quite a bit. All of you should have received a copy of our 2021 annual report. If not, copies are available from the SLELO PRISM website, I believe under the resources page, or if you email any one of us, we can send you a copy direct. So in 2021, we began invasive species suppression and ecological restoration efforts on riparian corridors of Sandy, South Sandy, and Deer Creek, which is a project designed to cool streamside water temperatures and increase resilience to climate changes. Approximately 3.2 acres of knotweed and Phragmites were suppressed. Reseeding with up to 11 species of native seed is scheduled for this season. And this project is similar to our Salmon River restoration project, which is a great example of invasive species suppression followed by restoration to strengthen the native plant communities and make them generally more resilient overall. Through our watercraft inspection and stewardship program, we intercepted aquatic invasive species on 346 occasions last year and completed 9,648 watercraft inspections. We also prepared our first ever Eastern Lake Ontario Dunes Invasive Species Management Plan, which has been provided to the Dunes Coalition for implementation consideration. And we've successfully launched a Pledge to Protect marketing initiative, which is designed to influence behavior and bring about behavioral change. The SLELO PRISM teamed up with multiple partners on a project to detect nascent populations of aquatic invasive plants in the Great Lakes ports. Project partners included the Nature Conservancy's Great Lakes team, Michigan State University, Western New York SLELO and Finger Lakes PRISMs, New York State DEC, and the FLOPA program. Work on this particular project occurred in the New York ports of Oswego Harbor, Irondequoit Bay, Genesee River, Eastern Lake Ontario, and the Buffalo River. And incidentally, I just wanted to mention that Eric Elgin from Michigan State University, he's the tall guy in the back with the green cap on. He has amazing knowledge of aquatic plants. He can literally identify any plant by genus and species, native or non-native, that comes up. Very impressive. We assisted with the early detection of Hemlock woolly Adelgid and then worked with our partners at Oswego Soil and Water Conservation District to conduct treatments. A Black River Trail feasibility study was completed using a unique approach to not only compartmentalization of the trail segments, but also to prioritize those segments. And we were instrumental in the release of biological controls for swallowwort and emerald ash borer suppression. We supported the release of over 40,000 EAB parasitoids and several dozen Hypena opulenta for the control of swallowwort. No Tier 1 species were detected last year among the 156 highly probable areas. We searched on multiple priority conservation areas in the region. That number includes both aquatic and terrestrial HPAs. We suppressed and controlled 7 priority species at 134 focused locations to augment biodiversity on these sites. Species controlled last year included Hemlock woolly Adelgid, giant hogweed, swallowwort, knotweed, Phragmites, oriental bittersweet, and yellow iris. The communities of Watertown, Messina, and Canton Canton and Pulaski have all received our Urban Forest Sustainability Guide and funding for native street tree planting. Watertown was the year before, and the other 3 communities were this past year. And we added 3 species to our notable natives list to include pale jewelweed, which is regionally uncommon, mosquito fern, and rock elm. We also directly engaged almost 60,000 individuals through education and outreach. And I should note that we only count those who we directly engage, not basically everyone in the building or in the room. And also through the launch of our Pledge to Protect marketing campaign, we made impressions on nearly 4.5 million people through the use of billboards. We also expanded our innovative approaches last year by continuing work with environmental DNA. We're searching for both native and non-native species using this technology. Kudos to the Arconic Foundation for their support of this effort. And we also purchased a new submersible ROV for testing as a practical tool for underwater work. And this photo here was I believe it was the ROV's maiden voyage. Jacob and Robert at the helm, and I believe Brittney was the photographer here. That's just a brief overview of what some of the highlights from last year. There's much more metrics outlined in our 2021 annual report. Again, these are just a few highlights. So I would encourage everyone to take a moment or two to peruse the report. The report can be downloaded from the SLELO website. We would like to thank all of our partners, both our principal partners and our cooperating affiliates. We collaborate with multiple partners on almost every activity we undertake. So again, thank you to our PRISM partners. Also, a shout out to those who participate on our Education and Outreach Subcommittee, and a strong shout out to Team SLELO for all of the work and energy they put into delivering our program. Thank you to Megan, Brittney, Robert, and Zack for another exceptional year in invasive species management. So next, I'd like to share some insight to our 2022 work plan. In the past, I have shown these page after page of spreadsheets. I've decided not to do that, rather to kind of upload each activity into a higher profile scenario. Our work plan for the coming year is robust. It's comprehensive, but I believe it will help us to achieve our objectives and our strategic plan goals. Again, I won't take the time to share every detail, but I would like to share the highlights of the work plan. As always, it is robust, but I believe our mission requires this level of activity. And I'd like to note that the work plan is somewhat fluid. We practice adaptive management depending on issues that may arise during the season, especially the past couple of years. So we adapt and move on to continue to do our best to make progress towards meeting our strategic plan objectives. So all of our work serves to protect our lands and waters from the impacts of invasive species. Our work plan focuses on 8 distinct categories to include what's shown here: prevention, early detection, rapid response, cooperation, information management, control, restoration, education, and innovation. This year, we've identified 85 activities that will contribute to our success, and all activities are directly linked to or aligned with our strategic plan to ensure that we stay on task towards meeting our objectives and goals, and we don't get involved with mission drift, so to speak. And incidentally, our strategic plan is also available from our website if anyone would like to refresh themselves on where we're going. Major activities that help protect our lands include early detection searches on priority conservation areas, primarily for Tier 1 species. We implement best management practices when and where appropriate, and this includes manual, biological, and chemical methods. We'll continue to augment long-term suppression with the use of approved biological controls as appropriate or available. Robert has been doing a great job at expanding our biocontrol program. And this will also be our last year to provide street tree funding to communities. We will continue over the years to promote our urban forest sustainability guide. But the first 3 years of the program under our new contract, we've also been providing some limited funding to communities to help plant or replant native street trees. And very important is the implementation of ecological restoration activities, again, when and where appropriate. Major activities for the coming year that serve to protect our waters include continued collaboration with the Thousand Islands Land Trust to improve upon and deliver our watercraft inspection and survey program, hoping to achieve up to 12 storage at roughly 27 locations. We'll continue to utilize environmental DNA for early detection work. And very exciting again is the implementation of phase 3 of our aquatic invasive species tributary initiative along Sandy South, Sandy, and Deer Creek tributaries. Brittney will have more on that later in the program. And also seasonal early detection of aquatic priority conservation areas. This season, we'll continue to promote our Pledge to Protect marketing initiative. This will include significant use of billboards throughout the region, and also the use of our virtual toolboxes, badges, and other components of the Pledge to Protect effort in all major focus areas shown here, which includes lands, forests, waters, gardens, and communities. We'll be continuing with other education and outreach activities as identified by our partners and our education subcommittee representatives. I also wanted to note we have one internal effort that we're hoping to advance is to create a priority conservation area scorecard for each of our PCAs as a way to evaluate their health over time. We'll hear more about this from Zack later in the program. And also are a couple of what we refer to as external special initiatives that we've put tremendous resources into. And we've recommended that these be implemented by either the major landowner or stakeholder group. So we've referred both the Black River Trail implementation and the Dunes initiative to appropriate external organizations. And that's it for a snapshot of our work plan. Once we have that uploaded to our website, you'll be able to view our detailed work plan for the coming year. Last year was another very successful year in our efforts to prevent and manage invasive species, and we're looking forward to another successful year with our partners and in collaborating on our mission to prevent and better manage invasive species. So next we'll hear from our Terrestrial Restoration and Resiliency Coordinator, Robert Smith. Robert?
Hi. Thanks, Rob. Good morning, everybody. Second here. It's going a little slow today. All right, I'd like to start out by talking about the 2021 early detection field survey results. The table on this slide shows the PCAs that had terrestrial surveys conducted on them. So there's were 6 last summer. It also shows the total amount of highly probable areas for each one of those PCAs. And then it shows how many of those highly probable areas had one or more tier invasive species. To all those abbreviations there are to the right there are for individual species. So it tells you, say, PSWs play as pale swallowwort. That shows that Fish Creek had one HPA that had pale swallowwort, and it'll show you that for 10 different species. Results of last summer's field season showed the presence of 9 of those 10 invasive species that we've seen on previous surveys. Yellow iris was the only tier invasive species not present at these 6 PCAs. Of the 109 HPAs that we visited, 72 were found to have one or more tier invasive species. The ISBZ had the lowest percentage of HPAs with tier species at 40.5%, while Mud Bay had the highest percentage with an invasive species found at all 8 of the HPAs. We found the fewest number of types of species at French Creek at 2, and the largest amount of invasive species at Upper and Lower Lakes with 7 species. The field report that includes this information will be available pretty soon on the SLELO PRISM website. All right. Last spring, we were asked to assist the DEC in conducting an early detection survey for new arrivals of bark and ambrosia beetle species. We set up 3 bark and ambrosia beetle traps at Rainbow Shores Preserve. Every 2 weeks for a period of 12 weeks, we collected and sent all the insects that we found to the DEC for identification. Recently, we received the results of the identification work. So that's what I was going to briefly talk about right here. From the 12 sites across the state that were surveyed, 16,176 specimens were collected. So a whole lot of specimens across those sites. When they did the identification, they found that they're able to find 72 species within that 16,176 specimens. Of the 72, 18 were non-native species. All these species were previously detected in North America and New York, so there was no new species found this year. If you just look at Rainbow Shores, our stats were 26 species were found there, and of those 26, 8 were non-native. Now, non-native species did appear to be prevalent in this survey. And if you down here at the bottom, right, you'll see state top 10 and Rainbow Shores top 10. You'll see with the state, 6 of the top 10 species were non-native species, while Rainbow Shores was only slightly better, with 5 of the top 10 being non-native. But if you look at the pie chart, you can see that the top 3 species, all of which are non-native, account for most of the beetles that were found at Rainbow Shores. To my knowledge, none of the species that are found in this survey are of significant concern. And we will alert you if a species of concern arrives in the area. All right. We are currently conducting HWA surveys. This year, we selected 14 sites to survey, and 2, Altmar and Shadowgate State Forest, will be surveyed if time permits. For those of you who haven't heard yet, HWA was recently found at Selkirk Shores State Park. We are reacting to this recent find with additions of surveys that are directly around the site. These include Deer Creek Wildlife Management Area, Derby Hill Bird Observatory, Sandy Creek State Forest, and Trout Brook State Forest. As usual, we will alert our partners if we find HWA at any of these sites, and we'll report our results at the next partner meeting. I will also discuss the planned summer field survey season and the treatment sites that Miller's Turf will be working on at our next meeting. And if I have any more info on biocontrol, I will also provide that at our next meeting. This is all I have for today. Brittney will now update you on our aquatic invasive species work. Thank you.
Thanks, Robert. I look forward to going out and doing more HWA surveys. It's always nice to get out of the office in the winter time. So I have just a few things that I wanted to talk to everyone about, and there are a few people on the line that I don't know if I've actually met in person or online virtually before. So nice to meet you. And if you or anyone else has questions about anything I talk about, please feel free to reach out to me. So first, I'm going to talk about the 2021 and 2022 Watercraft Inspection Steward Program. So our final report from this past year is online, and if you have not read that, I highly recommend it. Of course, I'm partial to the report because I wrote it, but there are some pretty awesome launch profiles in the back of that report or in the appendix of that report. So basically what I've done is worked with Zack and Shannon Walter, and then also Rob and Jake Tibbles from Till, who have helped to really start compressing the information and digging through the data that we're collecting at the launches and just trying to find out what other information that we're getting, and then also changing the program to kind of alter it so that it's better reaching the launches that have higher invasive species, higher spread potential, or risk to other regions. So a lot of those changes are going to be implemented in the 2022 field season. So I'm very excited for that. And yeah, if you have some time just to peruse through that report, I highly recommend it. There's a lot of data that is collected from the steward program. We are currently in the search for new stewards. So our job announcements have been posted online. You can visit the Thousand Islands Land Trust website if you would like to share that. We would greatly appreciate that. This year, we're changing the structure of our program a little bit. So we are kind of bringing in this tiered approach. So we are going to have a supervisory steward who their secondary purpose is launch work, but they will be traveling around and working with the stewards to get them the supplies they need to QA/QC data, check out time cards, make sure that everything logistically is working well. This change is based on the end of season, like on or offboarding a survey that we did with the stewards. So then we'll have regional leads who their primary purpose is to be at launches, but they will also assist stewards with answering questions and just kind of, helping the new stewards go through the process of learning how to do watercraft inspection and speaking with the public. And then we are planning to hire 7 full-time stewards and a couple part-time stewards too. Those part-time stewards will act as floaters to make sure that, if there's any changes at the launches and there's major rushes at launches, we can float them around to cover launches that are of higher use in that field season. Yeah, so anyways, check out that report. We're super excited to make some of these changes. We have some good projects that the stewards participated in last year, and we will be doing that again this year. So the next thing I wanted to talk about is the Aquatic Restoration Initiative. I know Rob briefly mentioned some of this, but I just want to go into a little bit greater detail. And so first of all, we worked with Cardno this year, who treated 3.2 acres of Phragmites and Japanese knotweed along the South Sandy Creek riparian areas. And this was super exciting. If you haven't been there yet, since all of the treatments and mechanical removal happened, it's super exciting because you can actually see the shoreline, and we started to spread a native seed mix. So there's 11 different native species that were previously found at this site or within the area of Lakeview Wildlife Management in general. So we have that seed spread that happened, and then we worked with design a interpretive panel to be posted at the site. And basically that's just going to introduce restoration and riparian areas and then highlight some of the invasive species either at that site or within the area or of concern, so tier 1 species of SLELO, and then also some of the native species actually found along those trails or in the seed mixes that we spread as well. So super excited to work with Cardno and have that posted at the site. This is, if you're not super familiar, this is South Sandy Creek here. And we are actually going into phase 3. So most of the work did happen at South Sandy Creek with a little bit at Sandy Creek last year. And then in phase 3, we'll do a little bit of work at Deer Creek. The reason for this was just the higher populations of invasives at South Sandy Creek. So in 2022, we're going to be monitoring for any regrowth of Phragmites or Japanese knotweed, and we will treat as needed. The nice thing is that the large populations have been pushed down, and so it should all be just stem injection for the Japanese knotweed. And then for the Phragmites, we'll have to do foliar spray as needed. We will continue that native seed restoration process. So just species that are native to the area or found within the area. And a lot of restoration projects use a cover crop like an oat or some type of grass species that's an annual. And we actually selected not to do that for this project, just so that we could increase the total seed of native species and try to encourage more growth at these sites. We are planning, and I'm very excited for this. We're planning a site demonstration and public experience in June this year. And so we'll be working with partners in DEC to try to get this up and running. And basically this will consist of a demonstration on the trails, so you can walk the trails and see where we had done our treatments, and then also a kayaking trip, so you can actually feel the experience of the difference in South Sandy Creek without the Japanese knotweed there. And then finally, we will be continuing our final drone flight for this project that follows the exact pattern as phase 1. And that will allow us to actually compare the densities of the invasive species beds and the changes that happened. So I'm super excited to be working with Zack on that. Here we go. So the 2021 eDNA project that we conducted, we had partial funding from SLELO PRISM and a funding from the Aquatic Foundation, which is Aquatic is a aluminum plant up in Messina. And so for this project, you might recall that we worked in the St. Lawrence region all the way down to Oswego. And so all of our samples have been collected. We collected over 140 of them at 14 different tributaries, and we are working on analyzing the data. So preliminary results are in, and we will be sharing a webinar in a couple of weeks to share more details about that and what our next steps are and how we're responding to any of the presence or absence of the native and invasive species that we found. We talked all about a mobile lab that we were building, and we're still so excited for it, but unfortunately, there are still some aluminum manufacturing delays with the mobile lab. So the trailer has been purchased and it's partially built, but we're still just waiting for it to arrive. So looking forward to using our new eDNA mobile lab in 2022. So we are working on next steps, and we plan to continue sampling in these tributaries, looking for both native and invasive species that are relevant to our project and to our partners. continuing to work with hopefully the lab at SUNY Oswego, who we worked with this year, who was fantastic. And we are hoping to develop more assays and work through some of the primers and probes from this year, and then just continue increasing our knowledge of the distribution of these invasive or native species. We are looking into a potential partnership with the Adirondack PRISM, and we are excited to potentially start looking at our connected waterways between these two prisms and seeing if we can collect some eDNA sampling in some of our water bodies. For example, Black River, Oswegatchie River, just for a couple offhand. And then finally, looking into the use of citizen science to assist us with the ROV, which I'll talk about in a minute. So these are the initial preliminary results. So we are excited to see the American Neon Atlantic salmon. We only got one hit, well, 2 hits of the lake whitefish and Cisco in the Raquette River, which is interesting because there are historical records of their presence up there. None from the carp complex, none from Snakehead, 1 from Tench, but Tench is known to be in the St. Lawrence, so that location was not unexpected. More hits on the tube nose goby than we were hoping for, but I will note that we do know that it is in the St. Lawrence, and there have been a few specimens found in the northern part of Lake Ontario, but we are working with the lab to continue honing in on those assays, primers, and probes to ensure that brown goby DNA is not amplifying and potentially giving us false positives. Rusty crayfish, and we actually had our first find of rusty crayfish in the St. Lawrence this year. So seeing it in some of these tributaries is not unexpected. The photos that we got of the rusty crayfish, it was a very, very large, well-established population. And so that was expected, although there hasn't been any rusty crayfish in the southern parts of Lake Ontario. So we are honing in on that to make sure that the rusty crayfish is also not amplifying with other species. And then finally, the Asian swamp eel, all of those are highlighted because the published primer and probe information, the sequence, the DNA sequence that we used that was published, there was a few little faults with it that we found that we were getting false positives. So we're taking that and we are reassessing completely the Asian swamp eel primers and probes that we used. And so hopefully we can get a specimen of that species. It's known to be established in Florida, Georgia, and New Jersey. So hopefully we can find someone willing to share a swamp eel with us so we can further refine that and figure out what that means. And so we do still have samples from this year that we'll be able to rerun once we can hone in on that. So all super exciting, and we'll share more info in a couple of weeks. And then finally, I just wanted to talk about the ROV. You can see some video footage playing. It's just quick little snippets. Unfortunately, it was pretty murky waters some of the days that we were out, but we were able to actually capture fish in the ROV. So we're still learning how to drive it underwater. And then also we found that basically what we do is we put it in the water and we record all footage when we're in there. And it records for, sometimes we drive it for 30 to 45 minutes, and going back through all the footage is very time consuming. And a lot of times we found, so these 3 examples were when we were driving the ROV and we actually missed the fish on, because you use a phone, as you can see in the picture. So we didn't see the fish as it like swam past the actual camera. So we're hoping maybe to develop a citizen science project to have anyone interested, volunteers interested in tagging photos where they see fish or plants, and trying to help us further identify and refine our use of these videos and footage. So super exciting stuff. Again, that's everything from me, but if you have any other questions or want to talk about any of the stuff I'm working on, please feel free to reach out. And yeah, thank you for listening in.
Thank you, Brittney. Next, we'll hear from Zack, our conservation and GIS analyst.
Good morning, everyone. Good to be with you here today. So for those of you who I have not met on the call, my name is Zack, and I'm the conservation GIS analyst, and I share my time with both the SLELO and Adirondack prisms. And I'm just going to give a quick overview of some of the work that I've been up to and some of the work that I have planned for 2022. So much of what I do for the SLELO PRISM is behind the scenes, and it supports the work that our field team does. So primarily Brittney and Robert. So they're out there in the field collecting data, and I'm working here behind the scenes in the computer to analyze and summarize all of the data that they're collecting at our PCAs. So since we last met at a partner meeting, I've spent over 50 hours performing data analysis and doing report writing for our watercraft inspection steward and priority conservation area early detection programs. As Robert mentioned, we're putting the final touches on the 2021 early detection program report and hope that will be released to our partners in the coming days. Moving into 2022, Rob alluded to this early in his slides. We're planning to undertake a pretty big project to create what we're calling a priority conservation area health scorecard. So as you all know, SLELO has prioritized PCAs throughout the PRISM, the majority of which are surveyed on a biannual basis. SLELO has been collecting data at some of these PCAs since as early as 2012, and some of our PCAs have up to 8 individual field reports available, which is shown here in this bar chart. So our goal for 2022 is to review all of the available historic data for some of our flagship PCAs where the majority of early detection and management work has occurred. And the goal of these scorecards will be to assess the overall health of the PCAs, and it will include a pretty extensive data summary, including an evaluation of the ecological significance, notable native species, and climate resilient attributes of each PCA. We'll summarize the invasive species known to occur, including their abundance and distribution throughout the property at our various HPAs. We'll provide a comprehensive analysis of management progress for all of our target tiered invasive species. So in other words, we'll look back over the years at all the management work we have done and try to evaluate whether we are moving those species towards the desired trajectory, that is reducing their abundance. We'll summarize known restoration efforts and make some recommendations for future work. So ultimately our goal here is to use the scorecards to objectively evaluate SLELO's work towards maintaining the desired ecological condition at these PCAs. So this process is just getting underway, and we hope that the first PCA scorecards will be available to share with partners this coming summer. So stay tuned for more on that. That is all I have. I'm going to pass things off here to Megan.
Okay. Oh, Rob?
Yep, hang on.
Okay. All right. So, hi, everybody. So this pie chart was taken from our annual report and showcases education outreach efforts for 2021. Percentages were calculated by combining the total number of people engaged through held events, our websites, both the SLELO and the Eastern Lake Ontario Swallowwork Collaborative websites, email correspondence via constant contact, social media engagements, and our watercraft inspection steward program. So overall, we engaged over 58,000 people, hosted 38 events, and launched 253 social media posts in 2021. So kudos to our partners who have collaborated on invasive species education and outreach. So as mentioned, we did launch a billboard campaign last year as a marketing strategy for the Pledge to Protect initiative. The campaign gained 4.5 million public impressions, which are projections based on the exposure the billboards received by Lamar, whom we rented the billboards from. So this year we will continue the campaign with more billboards and more locations in each of the counties in the SLELO region. And if you like to take photos, we encourage you to enter our contest to get one of your photos on one of our billboards. You can sign up and learn of contest details on our website. I'll put the link to it in the chat in a few moments. Since our launch in the summer of 2021, 67 people have taken the pledge to protect, and we could use your help to spread the word. So you can help by sharing the Pledge to Protect Facebook posts that are launched each Monday, or by sharing a direct link to the Pledge to Protect landing page with your networks. We have a suite of pre-made graphics available, some of which are already on our website and our social media toolbox, or can be requested by emailing me, and I'll put a link to that in the chat momentarily. The annual Invasive Species Awareness Week will be observed June 6th through the 12th this year. And this is a statewide invasive species outreach campaign that raises awareness to engage the public to take action against invasive species. So planning for this year's New York Invasive Species Awareness Week has already begun, and I'd like to encourage you all to get involved. If you would like to collaborate in an event, I'm happy to assist. Events can be anything from hosting a viewing of the new documentary launched by the DEC titled Uninvited: The Spread of Invasive Species, or guided hike, paddles, workshops, removal efforts, or any other invasive species related event of your choice. So reach out to me if you'd like to collaborate. And the Tug Hill Tomorrow Land Trust and SLELO are leading a series of guided walk and talks to be held in February and in March. These walks are intended to train and recruit volunteers to survey for HWA and report observations to IMAP. The Invasive Species Mussel Collaborative is hosting a webinar exploring the role of Dresnid mussels in nutrient cycling on January 25th. Also, a webinar series featuring SLELO special projects are scheduled and being planned. On February 8th, we will host a webinar featuring the Black River Feasibility Study. And on March 16th, we will showcase the Aquatic Restoration Initiative. And webinars for the eDNA Tributary Project results and the Eastern Lake Ontario Dunes Invasive Species Initiative are being planned. Save the Rivers annual winter conference will be a 2-day virtual experience held on January 29th and February 5th. The Invasive Species Center in Canada is hosting a virtual invasive species forum with a theme of action, innovation, and outreach on February 1st through the 3rd. The forum is an annual event that brings attention to invasive species issues, research, and advances in prevention and management occurring across Canada and in neighboring US states. At this time, registration is full, but there will be recordings and a live stream viewing. IMAP and the Hemlock Initiative are hosting the first annual HWA Winter Mapping Challenge on February 12th through March 12th. The challenge is aimed to engage community scientists, volunteers, and bring together and further highlight the incentives, the regional mapping efforts already underway. You can get details to register for these events and other events on our events page.
Excellent. Thank you, Megan. So yeah, as you can see, another robust year ahead of us. A lot of the initiatives that we're working on, we're very excited about, from our innovative technologies to, the number of people that we're able to reach through education and outreach. It's just a lot of good work. I think it's comprehensive in what we've accomplished and what we hope to accomplish the coming year. And again, all of our work, nearly all of our work, relies heavily on collaborations with our partners. So stay in touch, and we'll move our mission forward here. So this brings us to the tail end of our meeting. We do have some time for open dialogue. If there is any of our partners who wish to make an announcement. I am wondering if any of our state partners are on the call and wish to make an announcement, that being the Invasive Species Coordination Section staff at DEC or Ag and Markets.
Hi, Rob. This is Tom Algeier.
Hi, Tom.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I wasn't sure. Okay. No real new updates here other than the fact that we still have spotted lanternfly in 13 counties. We're continuing to make plans for 2022 as far as treatment and survey. And also, we continue to ask you to monitor for zigzag elm zigzag sawfly. That's a mouthful. Other than that, there's no new events that would affect SLELO, but we just thank you for this year's diligence in the outreach campaigns and also for keeping an eye out for spotted lanternfly. Thanks.
Super. Thank you, Tom. Anyone from Invasive Species Coordination section? All right. How about any of our partners, SLELO PRISM partners? Anyone wish to make an announcement? Don't forget to unmute yourself. Okay, I would like to thank everyone for participating on today's call. Our meeting schedule for the year is posted on the screen and includes April 21st, July 20th, and October 20th. We hope that at some point in the coming year, we'll be able to return to in-person meetings, hoping that might actually occur for our spring partner meeting. But we'll have to wait and see how everything goes in terms of organizational policies, et cetera. For now, we'll continue to meet virtually, and should that change occur, we'll certainly inform everyone. So thank you again for your time today. SLELO staff is always available and reachable should you wish to contact us. Our emails are listed on the screen. Again, feel free to reach out to us regarding anything past, present, or future. And great work, everyone, this past year. Looking forward to another exciting and robust year coming up. And if there are no other announcements, until next time, I'll close the meeting by wishing everyone warmth and wellness. So thank you, everyone.